Uh, There we go. So it is 7 o'clock, and I just wanted to say hello to everyone and thank you again for joining our Man Up session. And as I said, as always, if you have any questions, please put it in the chat. And if time permits at the end, we will definitely ask some questions of our guests. Our guest today is Mayor Pro Tem Cory Branch. And Cory, now it is time for you to man up.
Thank you definitely for the invitation. And the topic, it can go in a lot of directions because it's real simple in verbiage, but in living it, there are a lot of things that come around when we say man up. What does it mean to man up? What does it mean to me as a father, as a son, as a husband, but also what does it mean to me as an elected official? Serving the community in which I was born and raised, serving and leading people that watched me grow up. And for years, they only saw me as a child, but now their interaction with me is as an elected official. So when we talk about man up, I think for me, one of the first steps was understanding whose I am. I grew up in the church. I grew up in First Cosmopolitan Baptist Church for years under Dr. W.B. Lewis. After marriage, I joined Baptist Grove Church under Reverend Ben Koliak and Benyu. And just having strong spiritual leaders in my life has helped keep me close. When we talk about manning up, being able to face rejection from people who you thought for years, cared. One thing you learn about being in a position of leadership is you have to not take it personal, but yet when people speak to you, it is personal. So how do I man up and be able to withstand opinions and correction and information, knowing that people are coming from a lens of their perspective and their paradigm. And sometimes where they're coming from is a truth and it's their truth, but it may not be the complete truth for the story or for the situation. Just being able to stand on that faith and stand on what I believe in what has gotten me through. Being able to go into a meetings and people say one thing to you and be there for and say, we got your back, but yet in here you hear the whispers, you hear the chatter. And how do you not lose yourself? How do you not lose the faith of wanting to serve and give back to a community that, yes, you've seen change. You've seen the shift, but you were, as a child, you were there in the shadows and you listened. When people talk about, we would love to have some grocery stores. When you heard the people talk about, we need some housing. When you heard people say, we need jobs. When you work for a mother who, when you live and your mother works for a city that you wind up serving one day for, or your father is a machinist and he's getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning to go work a 12-hour shift to come home. So he's home when you get in from school because your mom's working because she was home when you left to go to school. How do you man up when you've lived those truths and say, I want to serve in the community that sometimes you wonder, does it really love you? Does it really care about you? Manning up is being able to withstand those truths and realize that what people believe and what they see is through their lens and through their paradigm. And as an elected official, I have to listen. I have to understand. I have to observe. But at the end of the day, I have to do what's in my core, what I feel is the right thing to do. So how do you man up when you've done what you believe is right? When you stood in the fire and people on one side are like, hey, good job, good job. And the other people like, why did you do that? But that was in the morning, because in the afternoon, there was probably another issue and the two people switch roles. Where the person that was cheering for you in the morning, in the evening, they're saying, why did you do that? Again, manning up is being able to stand on your feet and on your faith and realize it's not about you. That you're in a position for a sake of period of time. It's about realizing that, for me personally, when I was born in 1978 and to when I was first elected in 2015, there were 9 other individuals that held the position that I'm now in. Meaning my time here is only temporary. The time here is not permanent, but the decisions that I make can have a lasting effect. The decisions that are made impact our kids that are just being born, are in middle school, are in high school, are elementary school. When we talk about transportation and we talk about trying to make sure people get from one place to the next place, I remember when we talk about Raleigh Boulevard, I used to go to the Boys Club and there was no Raleigh Boulevard from Rock Crier Road to New Bern Avenue. But that road was implemented and built in my lifetime. There was no MLK in Raleigh when I was born. But yet now we have an MLK Boulevard and we have a statue that allows people to go from one place to another. That's because someone else who sat in this seat that it now sit made a decision that they felt this was best. But what about the individual homes that the road cut through? What about the back of a middle school that the road cut through? What about a park that the road cut through? See, now we're some 20 years later and we're liking, hey, we love MLK. But 20 years ago, someone didn't like it. Someone fought it. So manning up is realizing that as we grow and as we build, that sometimes you have to look at things and realize that the decisions that you're making, they may not be for my parents who are both retired. Those decisions may very well be for my child who is 4 years old. And being willing to stand up and man up in that gap and say, this is the decision that I'm making. And this is what I'm going to stand on. But then you come back and you say, well, how do you man up when you look at your peers? People your age that you grow with, and they saw all the changes. They saw everything that's happening. And then then you see things where, hey, we had a grocery store at Kroger. We had a Kroger's, it was there, now it's gone. But government pushed it out. Not knowing Kroger's left on their own. And then Kroger's made, because they owned the building in which they own, they put a deed where they would not sell it to another grocery store. So you couldn't get another grocery store to come in instead. Or the Walmart that owned property at Sunnybrook and Rock Quarry Road, and also at New Hope and Pool Road, because they were going to do a Walmart neighborhood many years ago. But Walmart put something in their deed. No, this cannot be retail. We're not going to build, but we don't want another store here because that store will compete with our store on New Bern Avenue. So when you go and you make a decision and housing is built, and they're saying, how can you work on housing when we don't have a grocery store? The decision was made because I understood the facts and the land in which I was working, the playing field in which I had to deal with. There was no way I could get a grocery store there because the person who owned the land wouldn't allow it as part of their sale of the land. So manning up is also helping to inform my community and helping them understand the power of land. He or she who owns the land controls what happens. That's part of manning up and stepping into that gap. So we put all that together, and then we have to realize that, hey, you're just elected official, not knowing that everyone on Raleigh City Council is a part-time position. So that means they either have their own business, they're retired, or they're working for somebody. I have a full-time job. I still put in 40 plus hours a week in my regular job. Then when I see anyone in my community in a grocery store or whatever, they walk up to me, I still continue to serve them because that's what I was elected to do, if they voted for me or not. And that's the other part of manning up, is realizing that no one on this planet has ever won an elected position with 100% of the vote. Even people unopposed didn't get all the votes because some people just chose not to vote for them and they left it blank. So if you go pull every ballot that was turned in, you'll see that no one has ever received all the votes. So what do? You continue to serve those, even if they didn't want you in that seat, because that's the charge of a true public servant. And that's the charge of what manning up means. That's what man up means to me. Doing all of that and then coming home, walking through the door and seeing my daughter. My daughter doesn't care what meeting I went to. My daughter doesn't care what job call I had. To my daughter, I'm daddy. So manning up is being able to do something that as African-American men, we've had to do so many years. Code switch. I take off the hat of elected official. I take off the hat of an employee and I become daddy. And I do everything that's required to make sure that she has everything that she needs. I also make sure my wife has everything that she needs and supporting her. That's what manning up is all about. I make sure my parents who are retired, if they need something, hey, what do you need? I got it. I will take care of it. That's what manning up is all about. Being there for your family, being there and making sure that regardless of the circumstance, regardless of what happened to you that day, that you step into the gap and you're there for your family. And then it means also at some time you got to find a quiet corner, or you got to find a basketball game. You got to find something and get lost to the noise. You have to find that inner peace, which goes back to the first point of that faith. That's what gets you through. That's what manning up is all about. And I'm coming from a lens of as elected official, but as Black men, we have to man up and do all of these things all the time. If you're a deacon in church, if you're a trustee in your church, when you're at church, you have to take care of those things and those items of your church. But when you go home, your wife don't want to hear that you're a deacon or you're a trustee. They want to know what's for dinner. They want to know where we're going to eat. They want to know, hey, I'm hearing a noise on the car, our vehicle. Or you just happen to get into their vehicle and you look and you're like, why is this light on? Why is there no gas in here? Oh man, this car needs to be washed. This truck needs to be washed. So that's what manning up is all about when we talk about life and we talk about it, what we're doing. We have the stress, we have the challenges of the world. You can turn the TV on. If you sit there and watch the news all day, you'll go crazy. But you also have to realize the news only gives you a part of the story. So when you watch the news and you wonder why some elected officials do certain things or say certain things, the news only gave you 30 to 60 seconds of a story. When you have had an elected official who has read about it, heard about it, received emails about it, got phone calls about it, and then had to make a decision. That's what it's about, and sitting in the role and sitting in the seat. And then when you go out to meetings and you look around and still as African-American men, realizing a lot of times we're still the majority and the minority in the room, either by race, and for me on city council right now, it's even by sex. There's only 2 men on Raleigh City Council. First time ever that has happened. Am I okay with it? Yes, because again, I'm comfortable in my skin. I've had my faith to lean on. And I realize my time here is only for a short period of time. I always say that as elected official, there's two ways you will be removed from office. But either way you're removed, you either be removed by the people or you be removed by yourself. But there's only one catalyst for one of those two ways, and that's by the faith of God. He will decide which one of those will be used. So that's why when you sit in those seats, you have to realize who you are. And some people, as my mother would always say, they're not churched. You know, they never grew up in the church. They don't understand that part. That doesn't mean they don't believe. And that's the part we have to realize as a leader, is that you serve those who believe and those who don't believe. And you're going to receive information from them in so many different ways. So for me, man up. M, just being strong. A, just being active in my community. And always trying to negotiate for the best thing. Up, always looking up. You always looking up and trying to figure out what's the best approach. And P, finding peace. Always being grounding, always finding something that I can lean on and that can keep me stable. So for me, that's what Man Up is all about as an elected official here in Raleigh.
Oh, that was awesome, Cory. That was awesome. We actually have a pretty awesome question here. A question says, how do you merge the right now people when you are trying to prepare for the tomorrow people?
Woo! That's a tough one. You know, that's kind of like, I'm going to use my daughter to answer this question in this way. My daughter comes to me with a lot of things that she wants right now. And it's not something that I necessarily that I'm necessarily saying, okay, no, you can't have it. But I know that timing isn't right. So what I try to do is say, of what you want right now, is there something else that we can do in that stead? You know, one of the biggest things we have, you know, we keep hearing the word gentrification, gentrification, gentrification. The question is, at what lens are you looking at that? The definition of gentrification technically is pushing people out. So then the first question I always ask is, what is causing people to be pushed out? Is it income? So if it's income, the way we need to address that is finding ways to increase people's income. Because I don't care who you are. If I ask anyone, do you want a grocery store within 3-minute walk from your house? Most people will raise their hand and say yes. But is that possible everywhere? It's not. But where can we put grocery stores? What can we do? But also, how can we improve transportation? What can we do from a transportation lens to ensure that people can get to where they want to go? That's how I try to balance the right now people to those that, you know, like, give me more time. And hopefully I answered that question.
Yes. Thank you so much. And then the one question that I had for you specifically is, can you just talk real quickly about how you take your spiritual, your moral, and then your political in today's climate? And when I say today's climate, you know, all the different things that's going on in today's climate.
Yeah.
How do you put that together and come up with a decision to say that this is the right thing for all the people when it conflicts sometimes with your spirituality, with your morality, and even with the people that, can you help me understand? How do you handle that?
So the good book, and Jesus says we should love all people. So at the end of the day, that's what I will always come back to. And it also says, you know, love thy neighbor as thyself. So how I would want someone to treat me in a decision that I would want to make is how I try to treat the other person. I may not agree with their decision, and I may not like their decision. The question is, as long as they're not trying to kill, hurt, or harm anyone, are they able to make that decision? That's how I look at it. And then I look at sometimes who's coming to me with, you need to do this. And I will, to myself, I ask the question, well, if you're against this, but you're for this, aren't they the same thing? If you want to make sure someone's alive over here, but you don't care if we kill them over here, how can you say life is equal? So hopefully that answered your question.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And that will end our Man Up session for this evening. We will be, like I said, next month will be a doctor who's an OBGYN, and he's a male. So I'm looking very forward. But I would just like to say, Cory, I thank you so much, man. Whenever I call you, you'll always show up, and you know you have the same thing for me. And everyone have a blessed week, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You all take care.
Thank you.